You are doing everything wrong with him. And the worst part is, you think you are doing it right. You think you are being patient. You think you are being understanding. You think you are giving him space. But what you are actually doing is slowly pushing him further and further away. And he is not even telling you why. And here is the thing that nobody talks about. The mistakes women make with avoidant men are not obvious. They are not loud. They are not dramatic. They are quiet. They are gentle. They look like love. They feel like effort. But they are destroying any chance you have with this man, one small moment at a time. So if you are sitting there wondering why he keeps pulling back every time things start to feel close, why he goes cold after a great weekend together, why he says he cares but his actions keep telling you something different, stay with me. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 4 mistakes that are almost certainly happening in your situation right now. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do something for me right now. Drop a word in the comments, just one word that describes how his behavior makes you feel. One word: confused, exhausted, hopeful, lost. Whatever it is, write it. Because I read those comments and I want to know where you are at. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do that right now. We are trying to reach 2,000 subscribers and we are genuinely not close. So hit subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and it means everything to this channel. All right, let us get into it. Before we talk about the mistakes, I want to make sure we are on the same page about what an avoidant man actually is. Because a lot of women think they are dealing with an avoidant man when really they are dealing with a man who is just not that interested. Those are 2 very different things, and mixing them up leads to a lot of pain. An avoidant man is someone who genuinely wants connection. He is not cold-hearted. He is not incapable of love. He actually feels things deeply. But somewhere along the way, probably early in his life, he learned that getting too close to someone means getting hurt. He learned that needing people leads to disappointment. So he built walls, not to keep you out specifically, but to keep pain out in general. You just happen to be on the other side of those walls trying to get in. That is an important distinction. He is not doing this to punish you. He is doing this because it is the only way he knows how to protect himself. But here is the cruel irony of all of this. The more you push to get close, the more he pulls away. The more you try to reassure him, the more threatened he feels. The more love you pour in, the more suffocated he feels. And none of that is rational. None of that is fair to you. But it is real. And if you want things to actually change, you have to understand it. So let us talk about what you are actually doing wrong. Mistake number 1 is making him your entire emotional world. This is the big one. This is the one that I see most often, and it is the one that does the most damage quietly over time. When you are with an avoidant man, there is a very specific emotional dynamic that starts to happen. He pulls back a little bit. You feel that distance. You get anxious. You start focusing more on him. You start thinking about him more, worrying about him more, analyzing every text and every silence and every look. And because you are focused on him so intensely, your entire emotional state starts to depend on what he does or does not do. If he texts you first, you feel amazing. If he goes quiet for a day, your chest tightens and you can barely focus on anything else. If he is warm and present, life feels wonderful. If he seems distant, you spiral into a place of fear and self-doubt. This is what I mean when I say you have made him your entire emotional world. He has become the weather in your life, and you are standing outside with no umbrella, completely at the mercy of whatever mood he happens to be in that day. Now, here is what this looks like from his perspective. And I want you to really think about this because it is uncomfortable, but it is important. When a man, especially an avoidant man, senses that your entire emotional well-being depends on him, it does not make him feel loved. It makes him feel trapped. It makes him feel like an enormous amount of pressure has just been placed on his shoulders. He starts to feel like every mood he is in, every silence he takes, every moment he wants to just decompress alone is somehow catastrophic for you. And that feeling of being responsible for someone else's entire emotional state is suffocating to him. So he retreats, not because he does not care, but because the weight of being your everything is more than he knows how to carry. And the tragic part is, you are retreating into him because you are scared of losing him. He is retreating from you because he is scared of the pressure of keeping you okay. You are both moving in completely opposite directions while desperately wanting the same thing. So what do you do about this? You build a life that does not revolve around him. And I do not mean this in a fake way. I do not mean go pretend to be busy to make him chase you. That is a game and it does not work long term. I mean actually invest in your own life, your friendships, your interests, the things that make you feel alive and full and like yourself. When you have a rich life outside of him, two things happen. First, you genuinely feel better because your happiness is no longer held hostage by his behavior. Second, he can sense that you are not desperate for him to show up in a particular way. And that lack of desperation is actually more attractive to him than anything you could say or do. This is not about playing hard to get. This is about being hard to lose, because you are actually a full person living a full life. Think about the version of yourself that existed before this man came along. The version who had plans on weekends, who had friends she laughed until she cried with, who had hobbies and goals and things she was excited about. Go find that woman again, because she is not just more attractive, she is also a lot happier. And here is something important. When you stop being emotionally dependent on him, you also stop sending the subtle signals of neediness that make him want to retreat. The anxious texts, the over-explaining, the constant checking in, the way you hang on his every word hoping for reassurance. All of that softens when you actually have a life outside of him. He will notice. He will not always be able to articulate what changed, but he will feel that you are different, that there is less pressure in the air, that being around you feels lighter. And that shift in dynamic can genuinely change how he shows up. But do not do this for him. Do this for you. Do this because you deserve a life that feels full regardless of what any man does or does not do. That is where your real power lives. Mistake number 2 is chasing reassurance instead of creating safety. Here is something that takes most people a long time to understand about avoidant men. They are deeply uncomfortable with direct emotional conversations. Not because they are stupid, not because they do not have feelings, but because emotional directness was probably not safe for them growing up. Expressing needs, expressing vulnerability, maybe that got them dismissed or ridiculed or overwhelmed the people around them. So they shut it down. They learned to handle their feelings alone and to feel vaguely threatened when someone else's feelings require something from them. Now, what does this have to do with chasing reassurance? When you are anxious about where you stand with him, which is a very natural thing to feel with an avoidant man, you will almost certainly start looking for reassurance. And that reassurance seeking can take a lot of different forms. You might ask him directly how he feels about you. You might bring up the relationship and where it is going. You might send a text that essentially says, "Are we okay?" You might bring up something he did that worried you, trying to get him to explain himself, and in doing so, hopefully tell you that everything is fine. You might fish for compliments. You might say something vulnerable, hoping he will match your vulnerability and reassure you in return. None of these things are wrong on their own. In fact, with most people, these are completely normal and healthy things to do. But with an avoidant man, they tend to have the opposite effect of what you want. When he senses that you need something from him emotionally, especially reassurance, he does not typically open up and give it to you. He closes down. He becomes vague. He gives you a short answer that does not really address what you were asking. He might get a little irritable. He might physically or emotionally leave the room. And then you feel worse than you did before, and the cycle repeats. So you chase more reassurance, and he retreats more. And you both end up more disconnected and more frustrated and more confused than when you started. Now, I want to be very clear about something here. The answer to this is not to suppress your needs. The answer is not to pretend you do not have feelings or that nothing ever bothers you. That is not strength. That is just another form of anxiety management, and it will not serve you. The answer is to understand the difference between chasing reassurance and creating safety. Chasing reassurance is reactive. It comes from a place of fear. It is loud. It says, I am scared. Tell me I have nothing to be scared of. And it puts him in the position of being responsible for managing your anxiety. Creating safety is different. It is proactive. It is calm. It is the energy of, I am secure in myself, and I am choosing to show up in a way that makes this space comfortable for both of us. What does that look like in practice? It means that when he goes quiet, you do not immediately send 5 messages trying to figure out what is wrong. You let him have his space without making it a crisis. It means that when you do bring something up emotionally, you do it from a place of groundedness rather than fear. Not, I feel like you are pulling away and I am terrified, am I reading this wrong? But rather, hey, I noticed things felt a little distant this week. I am not worried, I just wanted to check in. It means that you stop making your emotional security his job. You find that security in yourself first, and then you bring that secure energy into your interactions with him. And here is the paradox of all of this. When you stop desperately seeking reassurance from him, he often starts offering it voluntarily. When you stop putting pressure on him to fill you up emotionally, he starts wanting to fill you up because it no longer feels like a demand. It feels like a choice. That shift from demand to choice is everything with an avoidant man. He needs to feel like he is choosing to come towards you, not being pulled or pushed or obligated. When you create that environment, something changes in him. Mistake number 3 is trying to fix him. Oh, this one. This one is big, and it comes from such a loving place, which is what makes it so hard to let go of. You have seen the pattern. You understand it now, maybe even better than he does. You know that he pulls away because he is scared of intimacy. You know that his walls are protective mechanisms. You know that underneath all that distance, there is probably a person who really wants to be loved. And you care about him. So you want to help him get there. You want to be the person who finally cracks through. The one who is patient enough and loving enough and safe enough that he finally lets you in fully. And so you do the things that feel loving. You read about attachment theory and you gently share things with him. You send articles. You try to have conversations about his childhood and what shaped him. You tell him you understand why he is the way he is. You reassure him that you are safe. You try to be the therapist and the partner at the same time. And you wonder why he seems more closed off after all of this effort. Here is the truth. You cannot fix him. And even trying to fix him is making things worse. Here is why. When you come to him with all of your insight and your gentle probing and your amateur therapy sessions, what he hears is not, I love you and I want to help you. What he hears is, I have analyzed you. I see your dysfunction. I am going to fix it. And that feels deeply infantilizing to a grown man. It feels like being a project, like you see him as broken, like your love for him is conditional on him becoming the version of himself that you have decided he should be. And his response to feeling like a project is almost always to retreat further. Because even if he knows on some intellectual level that you mean well, on an emotional level, it reinforces his fear that getting close means losing control of himself. You cannot love a person out of their attachment style. At least not in the direct, effortful, intentional way that this mistake describes. Change in another person only happens when they decide they want to change. And they only usually decide they want to change when the current way of being starts costing them something they actually want to keep. Your job is not to be his therapist. Your job is not to be his mirror, showing him all the ways he is limited. Your job, if you want to have a real chance with this man, is to be someone whose presence is enjoyable and warm and safe. Not in a way where you are suppressing yourself to make him comfortable, but in a way where you are genuinely okay within yourself. And that okayness makes being around you a pleasure rather than a performance. Let him come to his own realizations in his own time. Let him see, through living alongside you, what closeness can feel like when it is not threatening. That is the most powerful thing you can do. And if he never does the work, if he never decides to open up, if he never chooses to meet you halfway, then you have a very important decision to make. But that decision needs to come from a place of clarity, not from a place of, I have tried everything to fix him and nothing worked. Because that is a deeply exhausting and ultimately fruitless place to make decisions from. Love is not a renovation project. The moment you start treating someone like they need to be fixed, you stop relating to them as a full person and start relating to them as a problem to solve. And nobody, especially an avoidant man, wants to be someone else's problem to solve. Mistake number 4 is abandoning yourself to keep the peace. This is the most painful one, and it is also the one that tends to escalate the most slowly, which is why it is so dangerous. It starts small. He seems uncomfortable when you express strong emotions, so you start to dial them back a little. He pulls away after you bring up something that felt important to you, so you learn to not bring certain things up. He goes cold when you need too much, so you start to need less, or at least you pretend to need less. You shrink yourself to fit into the space he is comfortable with. And on the surface, this seems like compromise. It seems like you are being mature and adaptable and emotionally intelligent, but it is not compromise. Compromise is when two people each give a little to meet somewhere in the middle. What you are doing is giving everything while he gives almost nothing and calling it peace. The problem with this is not just that it is unfair, although it is. The deeper problem is what it does to you over time. You slowly stop recognizing yourself. You stop knowing what you actually feel or want or need because you have spent so much time and energy suppressing all of it. You start to lose your voice. And when you lose your voice, you lose your sense of self. And when you lose your sense of self, you become even more dependent on him to tell you who you are, which feeds straight back into mistake number 1. And here is the other problem. The more you abandon yourself, the less attractive you become to him. Not because he is cruel, but because the thing that drew him to you in the first place was your sense of self. It was your distinctness. It was the fact that you had opinions and a personality and things that mattered to you. Avoidant men are often genuinely attracted to people who have strong identities. But then their behavior slowly chips away at that identity in the person they are with. And then they wonder why the spark is gone. You think you are making yourself easier to love by becoming more palatable, but you are actually making yourself less interesting, less grounded, less fully yourself. And that is the very thing he was attracted to. The path forward here is not to become more demanding or to swing to the other extreme and start testing him. The path forward is to know what you are actually willing to accept and what you are not. And then to hold that line with calm, quiet dignity. Not with ultimatums delivered in moments of frustration, not with dramatic proclamations, but with a settled internal clarity that says, this is who I am. These are my needs. I am not going to pretend they do not exist. And if you cannot meet me here, that is information I need to have. That kind of self-possession is genuinely compelling. Not as a strategy, as a reality. There is a version of you that knows her own worth so thoroughly that she does not shrink for anyone. And that version of you is not only going to be better at navigating this dynamic, She is also just going to be a lot happier regardless of how it turns out. Now, let me bring all of this together because I think there is something underneath all four of these mistakes that is worth naming. Every single one of these mistakes comes from fear. Fear of losing him, fear of being too much, fear of not being enough, fear that if you are fully yourself, fully present, fully honest about your needs, he will leave. And so you manage yourself down. You make yourself smaller. You chase the feeling of safety from him because you do not quite have it within yourself. And here is what I want to say to you directly. That fear makes complete sense, especially at the age when you have been through enough to know that relationships take work, that love does not always last, that people can genuinely care about each other and still not be able to make it work. That fear is not weakness. It is just human. But the way you have been responding to that fear is not working. And I think part of you already knows that. Because if it was working, you would not be here watching this. The shift that needs to happen is not about learning better techniques to manage him. It is about coming back to yourself, fully. Not the version of yourself that has been shaped by what he seems to want. The actual you. The one who knows what she wants from life. The one who has opinions and preferences and things she will not compromise on. The one who does not need a man to be avoidant before she starts feeling anxious, because she already has a foundation within herself that no one can take away. That woman is not trying to fix anyone. She is not chasing reassurance. She is not making anyone her entire world. She is not abandoning herself to keep any kind of peace. She is simply living her life fully and inviting someone to share it with her on honest terms. And with an avoidant man, that is genuinely your best chance. Not because it is guaranteed to work. Nothing is guaranteed, but because it is the only version of a relationship with him that would actually be worth having. If you are still here, I want you to do one more thing for me. Leave a comment below with the one word you used at the beginning of this video to describe how his behavior makes you feel. I genuinely want to know where you are right now. And if this resonated with you, if even one part of this made something click that has been confusing you for a while, please subscribe. We are working toward 2,000 subscribers and we really are not close yet. Every single subscription matters. Hit that button and come back for the next one because we are just getting started.